We are a fairly new nonprofit organization. We were established by Mayor Sly James shortly after he was elected in 2011. He was elected mayor of Kansas City and quickly realized that the mayor has no authority over education in Kansas City, but it's probably the most important factor in our city. So he did a lot of research and met some people at the Annie E. Casey Foundation out in Baltimore that convinced him that if he could mobilize the community to support third grade reading proficiency, then that's the best thing a mayor can do to support education. And so that's what he did. He started to mobilize the community literally. He recruited volunteers. Every time he would speak, he would ask people to come and read to kids at school. And that's kind of how Turn the Page got started shortly after he was elected, really in 2012 and 2013. It soon became too big to be handled by the mayor's office anymore, and so he hired me to create this as a nonprofit organization in early 2014. So we became a 501c3 in 2014, and our goal is to increase the percentage of kids that read at the end of third grade from 33%, which is where it was back in 2012, to 70%. And so we've been we focus on third grade reading because it is really the biggest predictor of high school graduation that we have. And so, as you can imagine, high school graduation is extremely important for students to go on to have good jobs, to stay out of trouble. And research shows that kids that can read at grade level by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to graduate from high school. So it just is sort of shocking, I think, that a child who's only 8 can kind of have their future already determined at such an early age. So this is our goal, and we've made a lot of progress already. So we've only been around a few years, but the percentage of children reading at grade level by third grade has increased from 33% to 53%. And this is in the city of Kansas City, Missouri. So that is our geographic footprint. This includes parts of 15 different school districts, the biggest school district being the Kansas City Public School District, a lot of charter schools, Hickman Mills, Center, North Kansas City, part of Raytown, Park Hill. That's the geographic area we serve. So we've made a lot of progress, and I'll just touch on how we've done it because I want to sort of show that we've, what I call, we've sort of grabbed the low-hanging fruit in the first few years. First of all, obviously books matter for reading. Kids can't learn to read if they don't have books at home. There's this kind of really, I think, sad statistics that middle upper income families have about 13 books per child in the home. Low income children, there's about 1 book per 300 families. And in Kansas City, we have spent the past year distributing books to lots and lots of families. We've passed out about 300,000 books to kids in families in Kansas City. So more and more kids have books. Second, summer learning matters, and so most kids, or at least when I was a kid, the summer was not a time for learning, it was a time for playing and forgetting what you learned. And we can't afford to do that when so many kids are reading below grade level. And so what we as a community have done in Kansas City is quadrupled the number of kids taking a summer school program. So we now have 10,000 kids, most of them in the Kansas City Public School District, that go to a 5-week summer school program. So it's essentially year-round school in Kansas City Public School District, North Kansas City, and a couple of other districts. So this is probably the biggest factor in some of those numbers I showed you before. Third, tutoring. So we helped to start a tutoring program called the Literacy Lab 2 years ago. So we raised about $100,000 and replicated a tutoring program here in Kansas City that really worked in Minnesota. It's called the Literacy Lab, and they now have about 40 tutors in the highest need schools. So these are all things that have worked, but this very complicated looking chart shows what the problem is that we still have. So if you'll indulge me in this chart that I took like a day to make because I was so excited about it. The y-axis is the percentage of kids reading at grade level. So the very top is 1, that's 100%. And then along the x-axis is income level. So the further you go to the right, basically the poorer the school is. And so the trend line probably looks like you would predict, right? The poorer the school, the less kids that are reading at grade level. But there are some outliers, and that's why we track this. The size of those circles corresponds to the size of the school, and all of those circles comprise our footprint. So we've had a lot of really, I think, positive, like Wynwood Elementary School, Boone Elementary School, Hartman Elementary School. Some good things are happening, but look at the bottom right-hand corner. I mean, there are some schools where there are barely any kids reading in grade level by the end of third grade. In fact, King Elementary School, which is doing better now, in 2015, none of the third graders read at grade level, and there were 60. So it's just an important statistic, and what we're trying to do is literally make a heavy lift up all those schools on the right-hand side so that we can move that trend line up to 70%. And to do that, we have to focus on parents. And so I put up this quote, I just like this, by Winston Churchill, because it really reminds me of what we're trying to do. So he said, you can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. Well, in Turn the Page, we've tried everything but supporting parent success, and now we realize there's no other way to do this than supporting parent success. Those kids that started at King Elementary School in kindergarten, those 60 kids that were not reading at third grade level, most of them were way far behind in kindergarten, right? They didn't know their numbers, they didn't know their letters, they couldn't sit still. Almost impossible for a school to handle that. There are not enough reading interventionists, reading specialists to bring those kids up to grade level. So, what we had started this past year is a project to support learning from birth. This picture is a picture of a dad reading to his son, and what you can imagine happening inside that kid's brain is that brain is like a sponge, and every night when that dad reads to his son, that sponge is absorbing letters and words, and so by the time he gets to kindergarten, he's going to just take off. He's going to learn to read very quickly. Unfortunately, this is not happening at nearly enough households in Kansas City. So by the age of 3, children born into low-income families hear 30 million fewer words than their peers. And this is kind of a famous study that was actually done here in Kansas, University of Kansas, where they actually took little, they call them Lena devices, and they measured the number of words that kids were hearing from low-income and upper-income families, and that was the word gap. So what we're trying to do is to support parents in 3 ways, and this graphic shows what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to encourage more of those back and forth interactions between parents and babies. We're trying to get more and more parents to read to their kids so that their vocabularies are enriched. And then finally, we're trying to help parents track and assess the progress that their kids are making developmentally. So those are our 3 goals with encouraging parents, and specifically focused on parents of kids ages 0 to 3, so babies and toddlers. And to do it, we have opened what we're calling an early learning hub. So this is the building. It is located on Hospital Hill at the corner of 24th and Campbell, so very close to the health department. Perched right up on Hospital Hill, so it's got a spectacular view of the city from up there. This used to be a program run by the health department called Safety Street, where they taught kids about safety. So in the backyard, there's a huge backyard, and there used to be a little school bus, and they would teach kids how to get off the school properly. Well, this program went away, and the city owned the building, and they leased it to us. So we're leasing this building. We started our lease in January, and we've spent about 10 months renovating this place, all through volunteers and donations. So AT&T in particular, and Populous, and the Centurions, which is the Chamber of Commerce program, have spent a lot of time volunteering to transform this place into an early learning hub. So this is the stuff we have there now. So we have all of these resources on the left-hand side of the screen are things that we've installed in this building. So these are things like room tip cards, tips on how to talk and play with your kids, books, toys, educational toys, a Born Learning Trail, which is the United Way program. And then on the right hand, we have all these existing partners. So partners like Parents as Teachers, the Front Porch Alliance, organizations with access to families, many of them low-income families. So we have a building, we have awesome stuff there, we have resources, and now we have these partnerships. What we really, really need is a person. So this is not the person, by the way. This is a volunteer who's kind of handling this for now. But we really want to hire a family development coordinator half-time to really get this thing started. So build capacity for this, really get this program started in the right way. So we've asked for a $25,000 grant. We have a few people in mind that we would contract with. to essentially establish this early learning hub and open it up and try to get at least 500 families in there in the first year. And as families come in, they'll get access to resources, they'll get books, they'll be able to check out educational toys, we will model play, model reading, and hopefully turn these parents into the first teachers of their kids. So that's what we plan to do, and I probably shouldn't even do this, but I will say also that if we are not awarded the full grant, we can still do this. So our plan is to essentially take whatever funding we get, try to match it, but start with the funding we get, and contract with a trained certified parent educator to help get the whole process started and then move from there. So with that, I will conclude and take any questions.
Darren?
Yes.
On the that graph that you put together, which was really sharp, by the way.
Thank you.
That seemed like it had a lot of KC public schools, but there also were some charters on there. Is that right?
Yes.
And so you don't work exclusively with just public struggling school districts and schools. You also work with other educational organizations.
Correct. Yes. Yes. And so, and for those of you who aren't familiar, there charter schools are allowed in the Kansas City Public School District. And so there are probably 40% of the kids that live in that district now go to charter schools. Just this year, four new elementary charters opened. And so yeah, we work with both charters and district. I would say that when we did first start out, we started with working mostly with the Center School District, the Kansas City School District, and the Park Hill School District. Now we've moved also into charter schools.
Just for personal reasons, do you need volunteers?
We do, yeah. Thank you for asking. We have a volunteer program that we started, that the mayor started, that we have since merged with a program called Lead to Read. And it is a volunteer program where volunteers go into schools once a week over the lunch hour and read to kids. And there are about 1,000 volunteers now. It's grown dramatically. And the way we do it is we work with Lead to Read and identify schools of need, and then assemble a huge group of volunteers, and then go classroom by classroom until we're maxed out, then we move to the next school. So a good example is Garfield Elementary School. We have about 120 volunteers that go in every Wednesday on lunch hour at the same time. It's really dramatic to see a huge group of people coming in, and then all of them going to the classrooms and one-on-one reading with kids.
So they're one-on-one, they're not even small groups?
That's right, they're one-on-one, and
That's
they
amazing.
stick with the same kid each week for the
Oh,
whole
that's
school
great.
year. So, yeah, so kind of one by one, we're trying to move to different schools. So right now, we're trying to, there's a school called Bannockburn Elementary School, which is kind of southeast side of Kansas City. We're trying to fill classrooms there. So we do that by recruiting individual volunteers like yourself, or working with an entire company or organization. A good example of that is Populous, the architecture or I guess sports design firm on the plaza, has now assembled about a group of 50 volunteers that go to King Elementary once a week. So it's pretty great.
So you would get a Lead to Read for that?
You would go to us, and we could place you.
Go to IFB.
Yeah, and then because we also have another option, which is pre-K. If you want to volunteer in a pre-K program, we have several sites where we place volunteers in pre-K classrooms too.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.